Okay, to form the scenic break, as I showed you when I did the overview of the layout, I'm going to be using this concrete bridge as a road over bridge over the end of the layout there. This is from Scalescenes. I've used a lot of their cardboard buildings. So again, this is a card building. So you basically download it, print it out, cut it, put it on, cut it out, as I've shown before on some of the videos that I've done. Now, one of the things that can be a bit of a pain is actually cutting out the base layers on card. So if we have a look on the actual printout, so this is the Scalescenes printout. So these here are some beams. They're the cover layers, so they're the actual printed part of the, if you like, the texture that you're going to see when you do the bridge. And what we have is we have this thing here, which are the base layers. So the idea is, as it says down there, if you notice, it says at the bottom here, it says bottom right hand corner, it says this should be on heavy card. So the idea is you get this piece of paper, print it out, stick it to heavy card, and when they're talking about heavy card, they're talking about 2mm thick card that you stick it to. You then cut out on the lines, and therefore as you go along and you end up with in effect 16 pieces of card. You then glue these pieces of card together in two by two. They're in pairs to make in effect a beam that's 4mm thick, and then you print the texture out. As you can see, it says print only, so this is on paper. You print this texture out, you cut it out, and then you stick that and cover the beam itself with the texture. Now the big problem with this is actually cutting out all these things here, all these there. So we've got the beam base layers here, we have to cut out. Then we've got some cover layers, print only. Then we've got some base layers again, which is on heavy card, so we've got to cut them out onto 2mm card and stick them on, and so on and so forth. Now it's not too bad on this kit because most of the stuff is straight lines, but when you're doing other kits where you've got windows and things to actually use, it can be a bit of a nightmare. However, there is a way around this. There is a guy that makes laser cut base layers. So what he basically does is he takes this sheet here and he laser cuts them onto, in this case, 2mm thick. I think he uses MDF or whatever. And then they're all pre-cut and you can use them as your base layers. Now in the past, I haven't really been able to do this because most of the buildings that I build using card, as you know, when I've done it, are all in effect scratch, they're kit bash, they're scratch built, changed to be different things. So that's what I'm going to use today and show you how I actually go about using these and what the kits themselves look like when you get them. So the bit you're looking at now is the printed out kit, what we're going to print out, and then we're going to look at the ChrisInDen base layer system. Okay, so what we're looking at here is one of ChrisInDen kits. As you can see, these are all laser cut out, so on there, and it also tells you what they are, so the abutment capping, etc., so you can see what it is you're gonna do. So this one here is would be on thick card, so it's 2mm thick. The abutments on there. This is on what would be classed as the thinner card, so you can see it's quite thin, quite flexible. These are the pier base layers, and that we'll be looking at them later, how to make them. Top decks, so all the various bits, as I said on the other video, anything on there that would be printed out as a blank piece is what these kits are made from. So one thing he recommends is that when you get the kit, you do a printout on your own printer. So this, in effect,
if we look at this, these are the beam base layers, and this is the beam base layer over here, beam base layer on there, and this is one there. And what he suggests is you print them out exactly as they would come on a printer. Then you take one of the parts and just check that it's actually coming out the same size. Now it should be, if you print, if you're in 00, for example, and you print 100%, then it should come out exactly the same size as he's done it, but it is a check. And if it's slightly out, then maybe you could adjust it by, you know, printing at 101% or 99%, but it ought to be exactly, but it's worth the check before you print everything out. And if you do it on one of the base layers, it means you've only used a bit of black and a bit of color, so you haven't done on there. So that's where we are with those. So what we're going to start doing is actually building them. So in this instance, I'm going to start with the beam base layers on there and just quickly do the nubs that are on there. So one of the things we have to do with the beam base layers is that they're actually 2mm thick, and what you do is you join them together to make them a 4mm thick for the base layer. So we'll show you one of these. So basically on there, what I use is quite simply on these bits, I always try and use these to try and keep the actual cutting mat clean and not get covered with glue. I've got another cutting mat under here which is actually covered with glue, paint and everything else, so I am trying with this new cutting mat to preserve it. So all I'm going to use is some normal PVA white glue on there. Get this splodge in there. Right, bit of a splodge on there to get it out of the way. Yeah, and then take a dab. Now what I try and do if you're doing these base layers is I try and get it so that you have a name on both sides. So for example, these two, we've got beam base layer, so turn that way over, I'm going to glue that on there, so it doesn't matter, once I've completed it I still know what they are. Not so bad on a small kit, but on a bigger kit where you're doing lots of stuff, it's quite handy to be able to do that. So all I'm going to do is just do that, spread the old PVA white glue on there. Put them on, and the two things I need to do now is make sure that they're actually lined up. So what I use is, I've got a square, so I'll just push that out there, and yeah, make sure that's done, make sure of that. And then the next thing I do is put it down, put something on top of it and weight it down to make sure that it's firmly fixed. So in essence, I'm going to do that with all the other bits and pieces that I've got here, and we'll come back to it when I've done all those. Okay, so what we've done is we've taken all the base layers and we've glued them together, like I said before, so here they all are. So just to give you an idea, these are the beam base layers, 2 layers glued together. Pier caps and the pier footing are actually 4 layers glued together on there. Pier strengthener, 2 layers but thinner card. And the inner parapet wall slightly different because they've actually got a ledge running along them, which we'll see where that goes later. The only other thing that's slightly different is these bits here, which are the pier base layers. Now they have to be scored so that you can bend them later. So in this instance, when they actually come, they're in effect blank, so they in effect just look like card, like that. So all I did for those is I printed out the bit of paper with the score marks on it. You can see them here, the red. I then put it on top, and just held it there, on there, and then all I did was at the top here is I scored marks to line up with that, and then I did the same on the bottom down here and scored marks to line up with those. So, and then using a ruler I then joined them up and then did the scoring. Now when I score the best bet is to use the back of your knife. If you use the blade, especially on this thin card, it's only 1mm thick, is to use the back of the blade to do the scoring. And then later on, when we do that on there, we can then take the piece out like that, just showing on one. And then what it's going to do is we're going to get it to score. So the way I do this is, obviously you've got to test it a bit at the time. You want it the score mark to go through it so that it will score, but not be so deep that you actually cut through the card or weaken it too much. So it is a bit of trial and error. You better take it slow and easy, a bit at a time. So what I'm going to try and do is see if I can bend this over there. As you can see, I can't. So what have we got to do is do a bit more scoring. As I say, nice and easy does it. Back of the knife. And there we go. It's now bent over, and it's just a matter of rinse and repeat for all the rest of them. Once you've done all the scoring so that you can actually fold these over, what you can then do is round them out to make the shape of the pier. And then what we're going to do is we're going to glue those two flaps together using white glue, the same as before. And what they recommend is that you use masking tape, stripper masking tape, to hold them together. So I'm going to show you what I've done, one that I've done earlier. So here's one that I've done earlier. So you can see there that the two flaps stick together. Here's the stripper masking tape that I've held it together with. But also, as well as holding it together, it also helps smooth out the jump between the two flaps where they go over. The other thing I've also done this is I've glued in the strengthener, which is one of these that goes down the center of the pier itself to add strength to it. Now these piers you can actually cut to length to make whatever height bridge you want. This is actually they are at full height because that's what I want to keep on these. So I'll finish those off later. As you can see, I've clamped them so that it can glue them together. What I've also done is I've actually cut out all the overlays that came with the kit. So for example, you can see this is actually for the bridges. So you can see where the bridges will go in on top of there, or the bridge piers will go in on top of there when they're dried out on the rest of it. So that's for those. These are the covers for the bridge piers that we've just been dealing with. This is the underneath of the bridge, and this is where the bridge beams will actually glue across to give the bridge its strength, and also to make it look like a proper concrete overbridge. So they're all the various overlays. They are exactly as they come. All I've done is printed them out. In this instance, I've printed them out on the sticky label type paper, so I can just peel these off and then stick it on there. The only difference I've made is because the bridge kit itself is designed, if you like, as a railway line to go over it. You can actually make it single track or double track. What they actually come with on there is either concrete or in this instance tarmac surfaces on it, and they're plain. There's nothing on them at all. What I've done is I've taken them into Photoshop and I've added the two white lines down either side, and I've also added the double yellow line down the middle of them to make the bridge on there. So just going to look at one of the layers. So this is a beam base layer. That's the actual base that we looked at earlier on, and here's the cover layer, which is printed out on label material and then cut out to the right size. So all I'm going to do is get the backing off the label. Sometimes this can be a bit awkward, but it's not too bad today. Get the backing off of that, and then I'm going to spread this out on there. So I'm just using the two couple of knives just to keep it reasonably taut. And then the beam base layer. The trick I find with doing these is try and keep it as light as possible when you're first putting it down, so that you can realign it if necessary. So I'm just lining it up on that bottom edge there approximately, and along there. That's all pretty good. Do it on there. You can take that out, turn it over. I use an ink roller, as you've probably seen before if you've watched any of my scale scenes, to actually flatten it down. So there. In this instance, we curve the ends round first on there, and then I'm going to use the edge and then the edge again to get it as wrapped as tight as I possibly can, and then use the ink roller to actually flatten it again, make sure it's nice and tight. One beam done. Now all I've got to do is all the rest and everything else of the cover layers, and once I've done them, I shall start again and show you how it all goes together. So once we've covered all our put the covers layers on our base layer, what in effect we end up with is a kit of parts. So here we've got the deck with the underneath put on it, on there, the top on that. We've got the side buttresses, which should go onto there and become the wall on there. We've got the bases of the piers, and then the piers themselves, and then the top to go on the piers, and then we've got the actual beams which will go across here. So what we would end up with, once we've put all those together, we'd end up with something like this. This is our piers made up, and here's our actual deck. We can see the two side walls here, and underneath we've got all the beams holding that up. So that's what we're going to end up with once we've done all this. So that's our own objective, and I'll finish putting this together, and then I'll show you what the end result's going to look like on my layout. So what we're looking at here is the underside of the completed deck, which is actually made from 4 pieces. If I was doing this again, I would probably do it from on a single piece of card rather than 4 individual pieces of the kit like I used. So what I've done is I've actually added a piece of strip wood to the underneath of the deck and in the centre where it won't be seen, and this is going to act as a strengthener to actually hold it all together and keep it in place once the bridge is in situ. Turning to the top side now, what I've also done is I've put the expansion gaps between each of the deck pieces. So these are come as part of the Scalescenes download. I've printed them out. They're on self-adhesive paper, and I've simply stuck them across the gaps to mimic the expansion gaps that are there. And if we have a look now, this is the bridge actually where it's eventually going to go once the scenery etc. is all in place around it. So what I've all done at the moment is I've just marked out where the piers are going to go. Once the scenery's done, this will go in there with trees and that, and hopefully will hide the hole through the end where the track actually runs out off the layout onto a lift out to go to make the continuous loop, and also to go to McBain Foods, which you'll have seen earlier. So that's basically the whole thing in place. The only things left to do really is apart from putting it into situ and getting it exactly where it's going to go, is I've got to spray it with a matte medium to seal it in and hold the colours in place so they don't fade over time, or at least they don't fade as much over time. Put the scenery around it, and that's it. So hopefully it's been of interest what I've done here, and I think the next video I'm going to put up, which might be in a couple of weeks time now, but I've decided that what I really need to do is do some operating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little operating video up and publish that, so you can see the layout actually in operation rather than just me doing bits and pieces on it. So hopefully that'll be something to look forward to. See you in the next one, and thanks very much for watching.